Okay, let's get started. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Archaeology Abridged. I'm Ben Thomas, AIA's Director of Programs. Just before we get to Heather and our presentation for this afternoon, just a couple things to remind you of. Hold on one sec, let me just get this organized here. We are recording this event and we will make it available on our YouTube channel in the next couple of days once it's processed, once we downloaded and processed it. But we please ask that no one make any personal recordings of the presentation. We're going to follow this talk with some time for question and answers. So please put your questions in the Q&A box and not in the chat window. There's a lot of messages that are going to come in the chat window and your question may get lost. So actually just put it in the Q&A box. We'll monitor that and we will ask your questions. We'll ask Heather your questions at the end of the presentation. So Heather's going to speak for a little while and then we'll have a decent amount of time for Q&A. And then just a final note, these programs, all our programs, all AIA programs are supported by our members and donors. So if you're interested in supporting the AIA, please visit us at archaeological.org/donate. And if you want to become a member, please go to archaeological.org/join. Okay. We are joined today by Heather McKillop. Heather has been working in the Maya area and in Belize since about 1979. Her work has focused on the ancient Maya economy and on salt. Heather's interested in how salt was produced, how the labor for salt production was organized, and how the needs of the inland Maya were supplied by these coastal salt works. She has focused on the Paynes Creek salt works in Belize since the 2004 discovery of the only known ancient Maya canoe paddle and wooden buildings preserved in mangrove peat below the seafloor. A project for which she received an AIA Site Preservation Grant to help with the preservation of the site and the artifacts. So we'll hear a little bit about these incredible discoveries today. And we'll also hear quite a bit about her work with the preservation and conservation of the wooden artifacts and how she's using 3D technology as a means of conservation and also as a means of education and outreach. So that's what I think Heather will be focusing on today, her work with her 3D imaging lab. Heather is the Thomas and Lillian Landrum Alumni Professor in the Department of Geography and Anthropology at LSU. She is a 2020 recipient of the Research Master Award in the Humanities and Social Sciences at LSU. Her publications include Maya Saltworks, In Search of Maya Sea Traders, and Salt, White Gold of the Ancient Maya. She was interviewed on NPR Science Friday for her work with salt production, and the link is actually on our website. Her current National Science Foundation grant with Dr. E. Corey Sills will support the excavation of multiple buildings at large underwater sites to identify salt kitchens, residences, and the organization of production. Heather, welcome, and thank you for joining us today.
Well, thank you, Ben.
Also, one more thing for all our listeners out there, Heather is actually joining us from Belize. So she is in the field finally after a couple of years of not being able to go and took the time to travel to the closest city where there's internet and is logging in from Belize. So Heather, I'm going to stop sharing my screen and I'm going to put it over to you.
Okay.
All set.
Thank you very much, Ben, for that nice introduction, and also to the AIA in general for giving me this wonderful opportunity to talk to you today from the bustling hub of the Toledo District, Belize, Punta Gorda, where our entire field team came from the jungle where we've been for the last 3 weeks without anyone else to get more food and have R&R. And yes, I'm in our guest house here in Punta Gorda. with wireless internet, which we haven't had also. So we're currently in the field. I've got an NSF grant with my colleague and former student, Dr. Corey Sills, and I've got a slide at the end, and you can see what we're returning to tomorrow. My talk, Preserving Underwater Maya Finds Using 3D Technology. I gave an overview of the project talking about salt and our excavation techniques in April. And at that time, I really didn't think we'd be coming to the field. And I'm just so happy, and my students and my colleague, Dr. Sills, and I are very happy to be back here. It's such a relief and to be able to continue our research. I can direct you to our website, underwatermaya.com, which you can see on your cell phone or on the internet. We'll be updating it. Today, I'm really going to focus on the digital preservation of the waterlogged finds and focusing on what we've been doing in the LSU DIVA Lab, Digital Imaging and Visualization in Archaeology. So I'll start here with, as Ben said, in 2004, we discovered wood was preserved. The red mangrove peat deposited as sea level rose since the last ice age has preserved ancient Maya wooden buildings in Paynes Creek National Park, which is in southern Belize. This is a large saltwater lagoon system in a classic mangrove ecosystem, which is largely untouched since the classic Maya. This is one of the world's best fly fishing areas, but apart from that, very few people go out there. And in fact, we haven't seen more than a couple of fly fishing boats in the distance since we've been out in the park for the last 3 weeks. You can see here, we're out on our research flotation devices with our portable research station. And you can see the inserts show what appears to be some wood, but these are date to the classic period, and they are perfectly preserved. The sharpened ends of the posts were stuck in the ground when the buildings were built. The problem is they're waterlogged, not only waterlogged, but they're salt waterlogged. And as soon as you bring them out of the water, they begin to shrink and decay and turn color. And it's a conservation nightmare that we've been dealing with. And we figured out a variety of ways to work for our particular situation. So what about the wood? The thing about wood for the tropics is that it normally decays in the tropical landscape of Maya sites. So many of you are familiar with this image of Tikal with the stone buildings that rise above the forest canopy. And typical of most public archaeological sites in Belize and elsewhere in the Maya area, what you see are the stone buildings. However, pole and thatch structures were likely common at Tikal, according to William Haviland, who studied the architecture at the site, the non-elite architecture, such as at the modern Maya community of San Pedro, Colombia, shown here with pole and thatch buildings. And here the only stone building was a church, a recent Catholic church. So none of this would preserve archaeologically. And so think about, as Haviland said, you know, most of the buildings were pole and thatch for houses, for storage, for workshops, and kitchens detached from houses and other purposes. So although we have the mounded remains of many of these pole and thatch structures, even more, as archaeologists have found in the Maya area, leave no mounded remains, and they are invisible in the modern landscape. And what we found is such buildings that are preserved below the seafloor and are invisible above the water. If you go to Paynes Creek National Park, you're not going to see the wooden buildings. They're very difficult to find. Even after I we excavated 3 underwater sites, and I published Salt, White Gold of the Ancient Maya, we hadn't seen any of the wooden posts because they're not supposed to be there. And so we weren't looking for them, which is really a comment on conducting science. You know, we are focused on what we know. So how do you find out new information? But here we are at K'ak Naab. This is in 2008. There's my boat driver still going strong. We'll be out there tomorrow with John Young from Punta Gorda. This is a shallow underwater site, and the flags mark, the red flags mark wooden posts, and the lettered flags mark diagnostic artifacts, which we piece plotted individually using a total station, because we can't see the sites until really we put it on a GIS map. So here's a vertical hardwood post flagged underwater with a wire flag, and some artifacts flagged that we mapped later. There's Dr. Sills and some others. Here's some flags. I have lots of movies of fluttering flags. Here's horizontal palmetto palm post and horizontal hardwood post. We've mapped all these things, and they're remarkably preserved in the mangrove peat. Some of these were covered with silt, and we've uncovered for the photos. So this is what we found: late classic wooden buildings. The late classic is AD 600 to 800. The terminal classic is 800 to 900. So most of our buildings date from the late and terminal classic. And these wooden posts with their sharpened ends define the outlines of buildings, Polinthas structures, by their wooden posts. And there's lots of other construction wood, including horizontal beams and horizontal palmetto posts. On a good day, you might be able to see this from above. You can see the posts barely protruding from the seafloor, but they decay as soon as they hit the seafloor. So we have mapped 4,042 posts individually to the center of the post. We've measured the posts. We've excavated very few. We did excavate some, and you can see the fresh sharpened end. We have not mapped sites at an additional 30 sites because they were in water that was too deep or too remote to map using a total station. And here you see a 3D digital scan of one of the posts. We have 2,439 vertical hardwood posts, 1,482 vertical palmetto palm posts, and these more usually defined the edges of sites. They may have been land retaining, but they certainly defined the edge of the yard for Saltworks, because we find artifacts inside and firm ground inside, but beyond it, no artifacts in very silty soil. So almost mounded hard areas. We have 16 horizontal palmetto palm posts, 32 horizontal hardwood posts that were mapped, but many more that weren't mapped, and wedges at some of our sites. Here's an overview GIS of 3 areas of the lagoon system. The brown marks mapped posts, the green marks horizontal hardwoods, and the black is palmetto palm posts. You really can't see it, but if you look at this insert map, you can see here's the lagoon system, and you can see different areas of the lagoon. Why the lagoon? Why not in the sea? Why not at Welkanki, this classic, post-classic Maya trading port? Seasonally, in the dry season, this is like a natural solar evaporation pond. The coastal lagoon, it's saltwater, and the water is seasonally hypersaline in the dry season, which we have just arrived at the dry season right now, doing our excavations. So it wouldn't require as much firewood to boil the brine in pots over fires in some of these wooden buildings. What we're currently doing in our field work, Dr. Sills and I, in our new NSF project, is excavating a variety of different structures to look at the organization of labor in the production of salt, to see Saltworks residences. And we have an article from 2021 in Ancient Mesoamerica that you can look up for free online to get the details of K'ak Naab, the site that we're excavating now, which is up in here. So here's a GIS map. That's a geographic information system. It's just a computer map showing a building. This is building 75, and it shows the larger posts, the turquoise ones on my map. They're not actually turquoise, in the corners, and they would be like these pole and thatch structures. And this photo is from the Robert West. Some of you know the name Robert West or should know. Photo courtesy of the LSU Cartographic Information Center in our department, and John Anderson, the map librarian. And here's another photo, here's the map, and here's a 3D GIS based on our 2D GIS from GeoMedia Intergraph GIS. And here's a walkthrough of the lagoon. It's all underwater, but if it had been dry land, Dr. Terrence Weinmiller, co-PI and a former grant, and you can see the post, and he's overlain some thatch on some of the structures. We also found the first ancient Maya canoe paddle at the K'ak Naab site, site 14, in 2004, and it's made from sapodilla, which is the chewing gum wood, and it's radiocarbon dated to 680 to 880 AD. And it created a lot of problems. First of all, we found it, photographed it, as you see the hands holding it above the water, and then we put it back and held it down in the mangrove peat, because as soon as we took it out of the water, it started to decay. And you can see the edges were worm-eaten. And as we found out later, that it was broken off here, and it was actually on two sides. It was not like the canoe paddlers on the burial 116 bone carvings at Temple 1 at Tikal. It actually had a blade on both sides. But these canoe paddlers, you cannot paddle a canoe like holding a paddle like this. But they were not paddling an ordinary canoe. These were the jaguar paddler god and the stingray paddler god at the bow and the stern of this bone carving boat, and they were paddling in the sky, and they were in a different world, not in the open sea. So we put it back until I knew we could get an export permit to conserve it professionally at Texas A&M using the modern polymer process, and we later returned it to Belize, where it's in the Museum of Belize, unfortunately in storage, but we also gave them a 3D printed replica for sharing. So the salt waterlogged wood and pottery created a conservation nightmare, because not only with the wood, when you bring it out of the water, the wood structure deteriorates and distorts. And if you want to submit it for radiocarbon samples, that's fine. But if you want to identify the wood species, you have to keep it wet. And you also have to desalinate it, because you've got salt crystals that dry and come to the surface and crack and expand the wood. So that was a problem. And you think, okay, the wood's one thing, but what about the pottery? The same thing with the pottery. If you take pottery out of the saltwater environment, then it dries out and the salt comes to the surface and the crystals expand and exfoliate and crack off the exterior of, for example, an ocarina, a figurine whistle, or the surface of Belize red pottery for those Mayanists who might be listening. And so we had to keep everything that we took out that we thought we might want to do some more analysis with or take measurements of or photographs. We keep them in Ziploc plastic bags full of water, and then start the desalination process. One of my doctoral students, Holly Lincoln, is currently doing desalination in the field, because she did it in the lab and discovered things desalinate pretty quickly, at least the pottery. So we've got things on a cycle where you can desalinate by rinsing in fresh water, baths, and then finally take them out and then let them dry. The wood we keep wet, and we kept wood wet since 2006 and 7, sampling of wood, and we continue to work with it. I'm very grateful for that because during COVID, Dr. Sills and I submitted radiocarbon samples from K'ak Naab that were in the lab that we collected in 2007 for radiocarbon dating in 2020 and 21 for our article on the seafloor survey at K'ak Naab. And we found out from our Ancient Mesoamerica article that the buildings date to different time periods, even though they appeared from the seafloor to be dated at the same time. It's a multi-component site with 4 phases of occupation from the late Classic through the terminal Classic, which makes it a lot more exciting and interesting. So with the problems with conservation, I decided we needed to, I wanted to start a 3D lab. So in 2009, I applied for a grant, which I got to start. In 2010, we started the DIVA Lab, Digital Imaging and Visualization Archaeology Lab, with a grant from the Louisiana Board of Regents. The goals initially were to digitally preserve the waterlogged wood and pottery from the underwater Maya project. The subsequent goals were 3D printing for exhibits, such as the AIA Site Preservation Grant, where we had, as I'll mention, we did 2 exhibits in different locations each time, permanent exhibits in Belize to try to incorporate the information from our project into the local community to promote preservation. And we also did outreach in Belize and in Louisiana. And then our third goal is for teaching. I've started in 2015 teaching 3D digital imaging, mainly for undergraduates. And this past spring, before we came to Belize, I started a new graduate class, Advanced 3D Archaeology, and training the next generation and learning myself. The initial hardware we had were 3 next-engine desktop scanners, which are wonderful scanners. We brought them to Belize. We've worked with them off of the generator. We also had a Creon laser with attached to a microscribe arm, and that is very detailed but doesn't have color. And with the grant, I got a Dimensionally 3D printer, a huge, heavy-duty, expensive printer that prints in ABS plus plastic at various scales of resolution. We printed the canoe paddle solid. It took a full week to print it in pieces and put it together. Software we've used, in addition to the proprietary software that comes with the various hardware, we've used Rhino. I've got a student here who's going to do some Rhino with our artifacts that we're getting out from our fieldwork this time. Mesh Lab, which is open source, which is nice. NetFab. Photogrammetry, we've used Photoscan, and we've got this really cool software that you can use on your iPhone called Scandy, and some other softwares. The new hardware that we're using, we got a photorealistic 3D colored gypsum printer, which has weight to it, so the artifacts have weight, funded by the LSU College of Humanities and Social Science. This is very exciting. The problem with that is it's not as stable and durable as ABS plus plastic, which you can drop on the floor, we paint, and it's very good for outreach and for exhibits. The new hardware we got in 2019, Corey Sills and I, with our grant, we bought an Artec Space Fighter, which is fast and higher resolution, and we're using it currently in the field. One of my doctoral students, Cher Foster, has been 3D scanning using the Artec, and it's really quick and wonderful. New hardware, which we got a grant for, I learned in Belize. will be purchasing and using it for teaching is an Artec EVA and a Leo, which will scan larger things like a car or a mound, and very portable. So we're excited about that. There's photorealistic gypsum print, there's photogrammetry, some research in the lab, and my teaching my class. If you go to our website, you can see more images of these things. Here's Roberto, one of my master's students who started with me in the DIVA Lab. We started in a tiny room with no windows, and we've expanded to a huge complex and filled it up. And he's now Dr. Roberto Rosado. And here he is with the Creon laser and the microscribe arm, which biological anthropologists use it to take points to measure skeletal material. And there's the canoe paddle after we got it back. They lost a piece of it here. What we found, which was really alarming at first, was that despite conservation, the canoe paddle continued to deteriorate. I called our conservation colleagues, C. Wayne Smith from Texas A&M, they were coming over to Louisiana. I said, the canoe paddle is cracking, what do we do? And they came over and they said, the cracks were formed in antiquity, probably from alternate drying and getting wet. And it's going to continue to crack. And they gave us some crazy glue and an X-Acto knife, which I also gave to the government of Belize. They said, just fill in the holes. And I realized at that point, and this is really the key for our research, is the 3D scan becomes the enduring record, despite professional conservation by the polymer process. This is an openly available patented process that you can set up in your lab. The wood is beautiful and it doesn't need humidity or temperature control, but whatever was going on, the cracks will continue. Here we had a CT scan of the paddle, courtesy of Women's Hospital in Baton Rouge, and you can see the worm holes here and the cracks and the edges. It's actually exfoliating from the exterior. So our 3D scans need to be really accurate, and we strive for high accuracy. And then sometimes we print things, and we can print things for research purposes to do measurements, and we can 3D print not at high resolution for teaching or for exhibits. And we can print larger. We can make small things larger and print them larger so people can see them more easily in the 3D exhibit, as Corey Sills and I did with the AIA Site Preservation Grant. And we can print things smaller like the canoe paddle, but we do not print the canoe paddle smaller because we like to print it in its full 4'7" size. Here are some 3D replicas of the canoe paddle, as well as the original conserved canoe paddle. Here is one CNC, that's computer numerical control. I now have a piece of sapodilla wood that we're going to mill in LSU engineering department, mechanical engineering. This was a test run of the blade only. This is in Cyprus, but we've got sapodilla. Here is the 3D print in ABS plus plastic. This part took 24 hours to print, solid, but we can print the exterior solid and then the interior more like a honeycomb and doesn't take as much time or material, which is cost. Here it is painted. And here's what I'm going to talk about next. I got a colleague who's a woodworker, also a word worker. He's written books with his wife. A carved actual replica of what I think the paddle would have looked like out of sapodilla. And we had, with the AIA Site Preservation Grant in 2013, we had an official opening of the 3D printed canoe paddle. Here you see it in an exhibit, and there was a formal opening in Belize at the Tourism Information Center in Punta Gorda. with the national anthem, an MC, Paul Mahung, reporting from Love FM. And we welcomed people to come, and we gave talks, and we had a catered event, and it is a permanent display, although the Tourism Information Center is currently closed because of COVID. And then before I gave the canoe paddle back, we had a viewing, the first public viewing in Punta Gorda, and people had an opportunity to hold the actual canoe paddle and take photos with it and learned about conservation. Then it was returned to the Institute of Archaeology, conserved, and this one remains in Punta Gorda, and there's a 3D printed replica given to the government as well. I thought it was interesting that people have told me when they visited the exhibit and they've seen the canoe paddle. And I said, oh, you saw a 3D printed replica. And they say, no, we saw the paddle. And there's no way that I can dissuade them from the fact that it was only a 3D print. And then I started thinking that, well, it's an accurate 3D print. So what is real, since we aim to have it an exact replica? And I'll just leave that for your thought. I've talked to my colleagues at the Smithsonian who've had the same issue with doing 3D prints of Northwest Coast wooden ceremonial hats, which were then used by the indigenous population in ceremonies and regarded as real. So I think it's a very interesting way to preserve and protect and promote the past in many ways. So then my colleague Kirby Salisbury, the woodworker and word worker, look him up, he's written books, we did experimental archaeology. I worked with him, he didn't like our drawing. I had to do it in a different way. So I spent a week, and we took the finished canoe paddle for a paddle in Joe Taylor Creek in Belize. And it's great. Now, it's got a very small blade and a long shaft. Well, that's great if you want to paddle long distance. You're not going to get tired. But it's heavy. It's really heavy. But if you're using a stroke where you don't take the blade out of the water, you just turn it and bring it back, the water supports the weight of the canoe paddle. So it's a great one for sea travel long distances, which is probably what they were doing with it, transporting loads of salt cakes along the coast and up the rivers to Libantun, Nimli Panit, and selling them in regional markets or trading them for other things. We do 3D scanning of artifacts in Belize, as I mentioned, first with the Next Engine and now with the Artec Space Spider. There's Dr. Sills. We scanned a little boat model, which you can see is small, and you can see it on the screen. And then here's Dr. Sills, and now a former undergraduate, now Dr. Taylor Oquan. And then we take the 3D scan and print them back at LSU and print them different sizes. I think a really important thing for us is that 3D imaging is useful for research in foreign countries where you can't export material. We're very fortunate to be able to export material for research purposes under temporary export permits from the government of Belize, but many places you can't. It's also 3D scanning is ideal for fragile or waterlogged artifacts where you need to scan them close to their excavation or discovery point. And I point out that we're using the Next Engine here and now the Artec, powered from a generator, gas-powered generator in the jungle with no other facilities around. We had very excited to have an Archaeological Institute of America Site Preservation Grant. I worked on it with my former student, Corey Sills, now Dr. Sills, now co-PI on their NSF grant. And we put on an exhibit at the Tourism Information Center with posters and 3D printed replicas. We had cases made, and this is a permanent exhibit. We also put one at the ranger station in Paynes Creek National Park because the marine tour guide said, if you put an exhibit at the ranger station, people will have to hire us to take them out to see it. So we did different ones at the ranger station at Paynes Creek National Park. There's our boat driver, John Young. Here's Roberto, the former head of the BTIA, Belize Tourism Industry Association, that is in charge of this Tourism Information Center. Unfortunately, as I said, now closed because of COVID. But here's the really exciting thing that we found. With the 3D printed replicas, there's no monetary value on the international antiquities market. So these people aren't going to buy and sell them. Now, we make some nice things. We don't sell them. We don't produce things for sale, but these have no value like real artifacts. And they don't require government permission to have artifacts on loan. Everything we do, of course, with these exhibits, I discuss with and get approval from the Institute of Archaeology in Belize. So we're not going to go and do these without their knowledge. But what it does, it makes artifacts or 3D printed replicas accessible to a wider public audience. And so the descendants of the ancient Maya who live, you know, in Belize and elsewhere, the people of Punta Gorda and other people, tourists who come, not many tourists come to Punta Gorda, but they should, it's a lovely place. They have access to this material and they can see it tangibly. And we have plans in our grant to do another exhibit or two, but at the moment, that's not possible. And I'll just say in closing that we're currently doing field work. We're going back tomorrow to the lagoon, and we'll be continuing our NSF grant, Labor Relations in a Traditional Complex Society, 2018 to 2023. It's a 3-year grant, but we had to get 2 extensions. Year 1 was at K'ak Naab in 2019, and year 2 is currently underway. Back to Lagoon tomorrow. We've submitted an AIA session with our graduate students for the 2023 AIA conference. So maybe you'll be able to attend and hear the details from our students and from Dr. Seals and me then. So I think I've spoken long enough. I just see my time is a little, I've talked for half an hour. So I return this back to Ben. Thank you.
Thank you, Heather. We have about 23 minutes for questions, and there are quite a few of them, and I've tried to sort of sort them by theme or topic. So let's just start quickly with a general question about salt. Saltworks, and this is a multi-part question, Heather. How extensive are the saltworks along the Belizean coast? Where is the salt going? What is it used for? And do the Maya have preferences for salt produced in different areas?
Okay, well, I didn't really talk about salt this time because I talked a little bit before, and I really wanted to talk more about the preservation and the digital imaging because that's what you guys asked me to talk about.
Yeah, sure, but just a very quick kind of like why salt?
So the Paynes Creek Saltworks are very extensive, and I've done some calculations that are in my Maya Saltworks book about the production levels at the Paynes Creek Saltworks based on the modern or historic production at inland saltworks by salt springs in the highlands of Guatemala, places like Sacapulas, where Reina and Monaghan in 1981 in an article in Expedition, you can look up, and it's a very detailed ethnographic account of family-owned saltworks where the people live in houses and they have saltworks nearby, salt kitchens, and I used their production estimates to give production estimates for the Paynes Creek Saltworks. Before I just say, I believe that in general, based on our production and the production at other saltworks along the coast of Belize that are also submerged, many of them all along the coast of Belize, and then solar evaporation along the coast of the Yucatan, where it's much drier. The so-called dry season in southern Belize happens maybe after Easter, but we had rain in May, and we're going to get more rain here. This is the rainforest, and maybe one reason why tourists aren't really flocking here, but it's a beautiful area. But it was regional all the way around. And so for our area, for Paynes Creek Saltworks, they were supplying dietary salt as well as using the salt to preserve fish and maybe meat. And we know that because the mangrove peat has not preserved anything with calcium carbonate in it, which would be crushed limestone temper and pottery is all eaten away, and any kind of bone. So no animal bone or fish bone, very little has been preserved anywhere. And so, but we found from useware analysis by Kazuo Aoyama, and there's a link to my talk, and you can, there's an open access article in PNAS that you can read. He found that most of the artifacts, about 80% of the stone tools, the chert stone tools, were used for cutting fish or meat, or for scraping hide, or for scraping fish. And this was really surprising to me because I thought most of them would be used for sharpening those posts and for woodworking, for the canoe paddle and the other wooden artifacts that we found. But that's certainly not the case. And so I think both for dietary salt, certainly lots of salt, even if half the salt produced was at Paynes Creek was dietary and half was for preserving fish, both salted fish and salt cakes. And we've done estimates of the volume based on ethnographic evidence were traded inland. And this is really a model with the wooden architecture and the salt kitchens for elsewhere along the coast of Belize, where the wooden architecture has not preserved, but you have the salt making artifacts that were used, the pots and potlikes, etc., for boiling the brine in pots over fires in salt kitchens, just like at Sakapulis.
Okay. So that, yeah, I think people just want the context of the salt and why salt, but okay, so some 3D questions, 3D printing questions and 3D lab questions. We have questions from folks who are, well, one of the questions which I thought was interesting was, are there any plans to make any of the 3D files or other material available online via a sort of open access policy? Or if not, what are the obstacles to that?
Yes, we're going to, certainly that's a goal. Right now, we've looked into various ways to, first of all, on our website, underwatermaya.com, we've put little movies, we've put images, we've put rotating 3D scans. We haven't put the 3D files, but certainly with our NSF grant, we want to be able to share the actual files. And there's various ways to do that certainly at a lower resolution, because some of our files are enormous because of we save things at various levels for research, for teaching, and for public display. And so we've looked into various formats for actually posting them and making them available to people who want to download them. And we've also consulted with, we're planning on making teacher kits and making things available for schools. So a lot of schools now have 3D printers, but the question is, where do you get the files to print? And a 3D print is only as good as its 3D scan. And so, we want to make accurate, good 3D scans available. That's a goal, but we're not there yet.
And Heather, can you mention the website again?
Oh yeah, our website is www.underwatermaya.com. Underwatermaya, lowercase, all one word, all put together. And we'll be updating it. We also have a Facebook page called DIVA Lab, and it's much easier to post things. So there's more recent things that are posted there, including some 3D scans.
So next question, do you have any issues with printing large artifacts? Do you have to do them in pieces? And if you do them in pieces, how do you adhere it all together?
Initially in 2010, when we started when we got the grant and started scanning and printing, it was a big issue with how are we going to print the canoe paddle, because the area we could print was relatively small, even with this huge 3D printer. And so, and we got the people from the software people came and for the printer, and there was, we actually used other software to cut the canoe paddle into pieces. Now there's software embedded in the 3D printing software that you can do it with. So we print the kind of a jagged line instead of cutting straight across. We slice like the canoe paddles, 4'7". That's not going to fit. We print it in pieces and then, sort of have a peg in one and a hole in the other to join them together. We use crazy glue, and then we use putty to smooth out anything before we paint them.
Okay.
So the technology and the software for printing big things has come a long way. So printing big things is not a problem.
Okay. And then speaking of big things, a question, we have a person who's actually working on 3D reconstruction of Gulf Coast dugout canoes. And they were wondering about if there was going to be possibly a reconstruction of a Maya dugout canoe from the pieces that you have found, or from the piece that you have found. And if so, do you have any tips on how you could reconstruct the canoe itself?
Yeah, we got a colleague from LSU Art and Design to come down with us one year with his 3D scanner, which is better than the Next Engine and could work outside, to 3D scan the pieces, the canoe paddle, the canoe that we found at the Eleanor Betty site. We found it and then we pulled it up. It was preserved in deep silt between two lines of posts, held up by pegs, and was over top of a funnel, a clay funnel, just like at Sacapullis, where they enriched the brine by pouring salty water over it. And so it was a repurposed old canoe, but we pulled it up and put it down several times before I really thought maybe it's a real canoe, because what's the difference between a dugout canoe and an old log that's kind of hollowed out? So the first thing we did was get a radiocarbon date, and it came back as an early classic date. And at that point, I realized, okay, now we need to go and excavate it. But by the time we did, it had broken apart.
Yeah.
And so it was in pieces, and we don't have the full size, and we can't really reconstruct it. And certainly the pieces that my colleague got scanned don't fit something real. We're hoping. I think there's been a small canoe that's been found, I know, by the Mexican archaeologists in the Yucatan. So they could use what we're getting in the fall for teaching purposes, an Artec Leo. So we may be able to bring that to Belize to scan big things and work outside. Artec Leo has a built-in 3D, it's got the screen and you can just use it outside. So my colleagues on the Gulf Coast with their canoe could take a Artec Leo and or invite us over if they're in Louisiana or nearby, and my students would probably love to do a 3D scan. We could have a field trip in the fall. I'm just talking off the top of my head, sorry.
I saw a couple of questions about this. So, the sort of, let's say, the ethics of 3D printing in that sense. So how are the artifacts that are 3D reproduced identified, and how do they connect to the original artifact in the exhibits and the displays? And a question that says, what would prevent someone from passing off a 3D object as the real thing? And I think I know the answer, but I'll let you answer this.
The ethics of 3D printing, I think, are really come come down to, appropriating cultural patrimony and, who do things really belong to? We have things that are not so culturally identifiable because they don't have decoration. It's not human remains. Human remains don't preserve in the mangrove peat any other kind of bone. So we haven't had to deal with that in terms of 3D printing and 3D imaging and posting online. So, but that's certainly an issue. And I have an article in an upcoming book through University Press of Florida about that includes a discussion of the ethics of 3D scanning and 3D printing. But I think that we're very open about what we scan, and we also keep very accurate records. We keep our original 3D files. We keep our 3D scans at different resolutions, since we haven't actually posted anything online, I think, we don't want things used for commercial purposes. That would be something. I think open sharing is a very good thing, but certainly we certainly go to efforts in Belize to have the Maya people in general, who are generally the closest descendants, to have access to what we find, and we'd like to do another exhibit.
Okay. Heather, I think you've frozen briefly, but hopefully Heather will come back in a second. Are you back? Let's see.
Yeah.
Okay.
I saw you froze. It says my
so
internet
I'm not sure if it's my connection or your connection, but okay. So another question now is,
it's more or less my connection, I think.
Okay. So just going back to that question, what would prevent someone from passing off a 3D artifact as the real thing? All right, for the folks watching, I think we're having a little bit of trouble with the connection. Let's see if Heather can get back. But there she is. All right, I think you're back, Heather. Can you hear me? Not quite there yet. Okay. I mean, we had almost an hour of a good connection from Belize. So hopefully we'll get Heather back for a couple more questions. I'm trying to see. Heather, yeah, that's true. So meanwhile, keep looking at some of the questions. So if she does come back, we'll get a chance to ask her a couple more things. But let's see. Okay, well, while we're waiting for Heather, let's see. So this, by the way, is the last of our current series of Archaeology Abridged. This is our last one for the season. We're going to take a break over the summer. There won't be any Archaeology Abridged. There's nothing scheduled for the summer, and then we'll start our next season of Archaeology Abridged in the fall. And those Archaeology Abridged talks, we're actually going to connect it a little bit more closely to our national lecture program. So in that way, you will get to hear a short, concise Archaeology Abridged talk from one of our lecturers, and then you'll be able to follow that up, or I think that maybe before, you will be able to get a sort of a fuller, longer version of the talk as well. And so that will start most likely in September, but as always, we will announce early and often so that you'll be fully aware of what lectures are coming up. And we're hoping that we'll have our whole Archaeology Abridged schedule up and ready by the end of the summer, so that you can just sort of plan for those Thursday afternoons when there will be talks. And if you're interested in any of those lecturers, we'll also put in the information for the full length, like the hour of the 40-minute long lectures that these folks will be giving as well. And as always, we will have time for Q&A after all these lectures. So you'll get a chance to chat as well. Heather, I see that you're back.
Yes, I'm finally back. I'm really sorry. It was working so well.
Yeah, no, don't worry. I mean, we got plenty of time, so that's. I mean, I'm surprised that that nothing happened earlier. If you're willing to take another question, Heather, there's some.
Sure.
This one of the questions that's come up now is, or people have been asking, is kind of a general budget. If you're sort of starting up your own DIVA Lab, what are we talking of in terms of overall cost and a budget and training? How did that come about? So how did you kind of set up this whole thing? I know you said you got grants, but I guess people want a few specifics.
Yeah, I think there's a whole lot more options right now. We started with 3 next-engine desktop scanners and some other software and a big expensive 3D printer because of the grant. It was an equipment grant. But I think a lot of people have gone straight to photogrammetry, which only requires a license. In my class now, I get my students to use their iPhones or their regular phones to take the photographs. You take 70 to 200 photographs of an artifact and then put it in Agisoft PhotoScan. But there's now a variety of other photogrammetry softwares that are actually open source. And so the costs have really come down. And so photogrammetry is a really good option for starting up. And in terms of inexpensive 3D scanners that would be useful for teaching as well as research, there are a lot of scanners available on the market now that are in under $1,000. So the next engine, we started out with the teaching. The college, I applied for a grant. I wanted to empower undergraduates to learn how to do 3D scans, and they bought 10 next engine scanners and 10 high power desktop i7 computers. The computer is really the important part, I think, for anyone starting either teaching or research. You need a computer with a lot of RAM and a lot of storage, and that's essential. But you could get scanners for instruction that are really not that expensive, and so you can search around and find them. For more high quality, if you have access to more funds, the Artex Space Fighter, it's over 20,000. So you're talking about a lot of money. And I've tried for a long time. So when Corey and I got it on our NSF grant, that's something for a big grant to get it. And I know large museums have purchased them. And they're really accurate, and they're really great in the field for research and for teaching. And there's a variety of others that various archaeologists have used in the field that are more expensive. 3D printers now, you can get them at all costs. We got a high-end one, and we've worked this. It's a workhorse. It's been working since 2010. And we have printed so many things. They're going to stop producing the ABS plus plastic.
Uh-oh. I think we lost.
There's our time limit. But the makers of that are really surprised. Someone asked in the Q&A, what's the cost of printing something? It depends on the size. I mean, we printed and the quality that you want to print it, but they could be, it's the material, your time. We don't include our time, but for the material is quite expensive if you're them solid. But if you print them
Oh no, it looks like we lost Heather again. All right, well, we are actually at our hour mark. We're at 2 p.m. So I want to thank all of you for tuning in and for tuning into our last Archaeology Abridged lecture for the season. Stay tuned to the AIA. We will send out more information about our next season. And like I said, Archaeology Abridged will again get going in September. In the meantime, there are probably other events that are going to be coming up at the AIA, and we will keep you informed. Always feel free to check our website. All the events will be mentioned there as well. And again, just a final plug for the AIA. All our programs are supported by members and donors. So archaeological.org/donate if you're interested in supporting our work. If you're interested in becoming a member, archaeological.org/join. All right, thank you all for attending. Thank you all for making allowing us to have a very successful Archaea Abridged season. And we will see you all at the next Archaea Abridged lecture in the fall. Amber and Emily, thank you for being our ASL interpreters. All right, bye everybody.